We have 4 half-hour talks in a row, so I hope it doesn't get too heavy with people. Really very top. Quickly reminding, even though you already know, we're on the topic of CryptoNet, the data, right? Hashtag Twitter, Telegram. Again, thanks to the sponsors, AWS, Sandbox, AP, Plus Laboratory, Initum, GFT, and Prowler. Javier is going to talk to us about, we have a lot of passions in common, right? One of them is about Stego and many other things. So, well, I'm sure you're going to like it. I'm sure you'll like it, and then we'll have time to discuss, debate, etc. Discuss, debate, etc. Javier, anytime.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alfonso. Well, good afternoon. My name is Javier, as you have already said, but that is the least important thing. It's the least important thing. We are going to talk this afternoon about steganography. I understand that many of you do not need to be told what steganography is because you already know what cryptography, steganography, and the difference are. Still, I'm going to do a very, very quick, brief overview of the state of the art, where it all comes from the Spartan cipher and all the cryptographic systems that we know throughout history, up to the most current cryptography, quantum cryptography, which is already on everyone's lips. But steganography seems to be something like very, very old. It seems to be something that was used many, many years ago. In ancient Greece, when maybe a lord of a village, well, we have the oldest record of steganography, is when these feudal lords took maybe a slave and made a message on his scalp, shaved their heads, let their hair grow, and sent them. When their hair had grown, they sent them to the next village. They arrived, they shaved them. And it was a way of transmitting messages. In the end, that's what steganography is. It's the writing of information in a non-secure medium, in full view of everybody. But not everyone can see it. It can be seen by those who knows how to look, or who knows how to look for messages. For example, Leonardo da Vinci, as you know, was fond of hiding information in a lot of places, in the pupils of the Gioconda, but this is something that maybe not everybody knows. Here we have the Last Supper, and here we can also find steganography. For example, if you look at the position of the feet, of the hands, of the bread, of the wine, of the cups, the eyes, then if we look closely, the one who knows how to look can see some patterns in the eyes, in the hands, in the dishes. This reminds us of a musical score. Well, this sounds, and each color represents a melody, an instrument. Well, this is pretty cool. Anyway, throughout history, Bach also, for example, also liked to, it's known that he liked to hide information in his scores by making something like a signature. This is what is called the Bach notation, which is 4 notes. In the musical notation of the time then, he represented the note B, the A, the C, the H, and not content with writing it that way from time to time in some of his most famous works, he also wrote it backwards. In other words, he was fond of it and liked it. Well, a lot of artists, painters, sculptors, etc. have done it throughout history. The Mary Goldberg and the Phantom Orchestra is something that not everybody knows about. It's not very well known. It is a jazz orchestra from the Soviet Union that used a notation that they had invented themselves to assign a number to each of the notes of the music they played, which in itself is complicated. Because being jazz, not everybody understands jazz, right? They were able to hide information through their music and be able to get information out of the Soviet Union. This is a really fascinating story, and I don't think many people know about Mary Goldberg and the Phantom Orchestra. During the Cold War, this is a pretty cool thing too, the exchange of messages that secret agents had through shoelaces. Maybe you were in a park and they could see how the shoelaces were tied, right? So that maybe because they were spun, well, it could mean that I have information, or follow me or don't follow me, because maybe I'm bringing someone else, right? This is also steganography. And it is quite interesting. Not all steganography is what people think of hiding behind a picture in pixels and so on, right? We'll get to that part, okay? In music, and you can tell I really like music, like I like sheet music. Here we can also see information. What happens is maybe if we look at these fragments of these tapes, we're not able to see it. But if we zoom out a little bit, maybe we can see something a little bit clearer. And this also sounds, maybe it sounds a little bit strange, but it sounds, well, in digital photography, this is the one you all know, right? You take a picture, you look inside it, and you see all the bytes that it's made up of, the headers, the magic number, and so on, right? In the end here, the strategy is to change maybe the numerical value that some pixels have, so that an original pixel with this hexadecimal color, well, you modify 1 bit. And as you can see, once the bit is modified, the color is negligible, the difference, isn't it? In this way, we can hide in the pixels of the photographs, we can hide a message, and then with a stereographic tool, well, insert it. We modify in a random or pseudo-random way, a series of bits, send it, and with the same tool, knowing the key, well, we could get the final message, okay? The final message, okay? Where else could we hide information? We can also hide information in videos, in audios, in PDF files, HTML, in code, etc., okay? There are multiple places where today, with digital systems and modern systems, we can hide information. In terms of video stereography, it's true that there are almost no projects, public projects. This is a topic that I talked about some time ago with Alfonso Munoz, and it caught my attention a lot, and it was kind of, why don't we do something or try, right? Last year I gave a talk here at RootedCon. I had the honor of presenting a tool that I developed, call it Pravda. Basically, what you do is you download a YouTube file, you shred all its streams and all its layers, you keep one of them, which is the subtitles. And through the milliseconds of the subtitles, using the milliseconds as a cover channel, well, with a key, you put them in, you modify them, and in that way, then you put it all back together, you upload it to YouTube, and surprisingly, YouTube doesn't alter that afterwards. So the person receiving the message can download the video, shred the streams, take the one with the subtitles, and with the same key, pseudo-randomly reread the milliseconds as a cover channel. And that way, you would have the message in the clear. Once this is uploaded to YouTube, well, the videos, as you can see, make absolutely no difference. The milliseconds in which the subtitles come out are inappreciable to the human eye. So this is quite a curious and cool technique. Last year, well, I gave the talk. It was called Steganography in MP4 video files. And, well, I don't know if you can see it, but come on, it's recorded there. If you want to go deeper into all these topics that we have talked about, ancient steganography and so on, well, Alfonso has a lot of books, but one of them talks in great detail about steganography. And then you also have the CryptoCert certification, which the truth is that it's wonderful and it covers a lot of topics, and among them, well, also steganography. It's really interesting. I highly recommend it. Well, let's talk about social networks, which is what we came here for at the end. We have already done a little bit of a review of everything there is, very old things, modern things. Here, in social networks, we are going to talk about, as you can imagine, this retweet is called, well, the social network I'm going to talk about is Twitter. And I ask you, what is Twitter for you? What do you think Twitter would be? It's basically that, isn't it? People yell at each other, shout at each other, but not everybody yells and screams at each other on Twitter and calls each other names and hates each other, right? Which is what that social network seems to be for. On that social network, there are also people who tell cool, interesting things, but there are also a lot of bots, and there are a lot of things that nobody understands. In the year of which he is a professor at the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, he had an idea, a project he called this retweet. He is the original author of this idea. I got to know this idea through Alfonso, who told me about it and told me that he thought it was original and it seemed cool. And well, what I did was to contact him because I saw that the idea was very good, but there was nothing implemented in this way, implemented too well or too professionally. And well, since I like these things, I told him, hey, do you mind if I give you a hand and we collaborate together? And he said, well, okay, yes, no problem. So well, we started the project together, we took it forward, and we released a stable version, okay? You have the Git repository there if you're interested. And basically it works like this, okay? You code a message, you take a list of words, and using a key, you make an enumeration of those words. You sort them in a very, very specific way, depending on the key, right? And then you download a series of tweets from Twitter. Then, for each one of those tweets, what you do is you match it against that previously ordered list, and in case it has the conditions that are necessary to be able to make the retweet, you make the retweet. Then, on the other hand, the receiver of the message would download all the tweets or all the Twitter activity of the person sending the hidden message, and with the same key, does the same enumeration and the same sorting of the list of words, thus being able to obtain, with the same algorithm in reverse, the message in clear. It seems very simple, doesn't it? But perhaps it is a little more complicated. Well, I'm going to explain a little bit the capabilities of this as well, okay? This list of words that I've been talking about is a list of about 8,900 words. These words have to have more or less, well, 4 characters or more, because in the social networks there are too many words with 3 characters and it could give us some kind of problem. So, well, we decided to include in this list words longer or equal to 4 characters. Then, on the other hand, when we take a tweet, what we do is we look word by word until we find the first word that could be found in the list of words, right? So what we can encode is approximately about 8,900 Twitter statuses or Twitter messages. And as the closest power of 2 to this 8,900 is 13, we have a capacity of about 13 bits maximum per retweet, right? Then we'll see that for each character, we actually have 6. I'm going to explain that now in the encoding process. The first thing we have to do is make a charset like this one here, where we have the whole alphabet, the numbers, and some symbols. There are 64 in total. We would take any message like this one here, for example, right? What we do is to separate it into blocks of 2 characters, and if we do not reach the last block, which for whatever reason is not even, we append it, we add a space. In that way, we would have blocks of 2 characters always. Each block of 2 characters, we get its numerical value based on the position it has in the charset, right? In this case, well, we would have here the 3, the 17. We would get its binary value, and this is where you see that each character occupies a maximum of 6 bits. These 2 binary values would be concatenated, and at the end, the resulting binary code, what we have to do is to convert it to base 10. That is to say, to convert it to decimal. In this way, with the D and the R, we would obtain the decimal number 209, and we would have to repeat the same action with each block of 2 characters. Here you can see a little bit better in this process. Explained this way in vertical, you can see a little bit better, okay? How we would have the encoding of the original message in that list of decimal numbers, okay? So, the whole message, you could say that this is the encoding in numbers, okay? Now it's time to take and put all this into the blender, okay? From the list of words and so forth. We would take a secure password, as secure as possible, because you'll notice that at the end of the day, the security of all this is based on, it's not too powerful, it's a security based on password, and then also on the difficulty of being able to sort all these words. We would take the password, we get its SHA, 256 and this SHA. 256, we split it into 8 blocks of 4 bytes each. Once we have the 4 bytes for each block, for each one, we get its value in base 10, okay? In decimal value. The same thing. These little numbers at the end are 8 blocks. We're going to use them as seeds to do the mixing of this list of words. So this is when we start. We take the list, we take the first seed, we do the blending, and what we get is a new list of words. And what we get is a new list. that new list is already sorted. We would repeat the action a second time and repeat the same action until we complete the 8 cycles of the 8 seeds that we have, from 0 to 7. Now it is time to send the message. We send the message, we have to optionally select some hashtag. And this has an explanation. I'll tell it later in the SEO analysis, okay? Because the hashtag is optional. If we decide not to choose any hashtag, there is no problem. More random tweets are going to be retweeted, more random. On the other hand, with a hashtag, they already have a theme. For example, travel, food, music, right? What you retweet will have to do with the theme of that hashtag. Well, here what we would have to do is to take each e-block that we have called, which would be the decimal value of the coding that we have made of the message in clear. And here it's about building a target. That target is the one that we're going to use in the Twitter API to do searches for tweets that have to do with the target, okay? If the actual hashtag that we've decided on is that we don't want any, so it adds an empty string, and go ahead, okay? Then, once Twitter, through its API, returns the whole list of tweets, we start looking to see if there is any tweet among those we have retrieved that contains the word. We are in this cycle. We're going to iterate through each of the words in the tweet, okay? And if what we find in each word in the tweet, okay, as we iterate through the words, if that word is in the list, what we do is we get the index where it is in the list that we've previously sorted, and we're storing it in an array, okay? In a vector of numbers, we're putting it in there, and we're repeating it over and over again until we use up all the decimal numbers that we had in it, okay? That way we would have it. Now it's time to receive the message. The person who receives the message, what he has to do is to connect through the API knowing the user of who is sending the message, okay? It's your contact, okay? And what it does is iterate through all their activity, through their retweets, etc., 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 okay? For every word in the retweets that the reader is analyzing, it checks to see if the word is in the list of your word list. But it's important to note here that the word list of the one that's receiving the message has also been sorted with a password. So, if the password of the sender and the receiver are the same, the list will be sorted in the same way. This is key, right? It's fundamental. If you put in a different password, your list will be sorted differently, and it's not going to work. That's why it's important to stress that this, in the end, is password-based. Okay, the actual word is in the list. Let's imagine it finds it. It takes the index and adds it to a list of indexes, just like we did before, okay? And then when we have the whole index list already, what we do is the inverse algorithm. That is to say, we obtain the binary number of that decimal number, we cut it in 2 small pieces, we obtain the 2 decimal numbers of each small piece, and with that we get the letter D, the letter R, and repeat the action. In this way, here we can see it a little bit clearer. This is the way to recover the message clearly, right? So we would have it encoded, and here we would have it clear. It looks like magic, doesn't it? It is. But then it's not really. If you stop and think about it, it's not that much magic. In the end, it's an algorithm that sorts words based on a key on one side, and then does the reverse on the other side, okay? If we want to see this at work, we can see it, come on the fly. Here we have a Twitter account of a user who's the one who's going to send it. We see his profile. In this case, it's a bot that has no followers or anything, no messages, no retweets, okay? It's an account created for this example here. And here, well, when it comes to using the tool, the first thing we do is configure the trace level so that we can see at the bottom what it's doing, what it is doing at every moment. At debug level, here we inspect the logs to see how it is doing it. We are going to see those logs, how they are, what quality they have. Okay, here we would launch the next command with Python, then the file, the script, okay? It's a tool made in Python. It has a flag, which is the -m flag, okay? Which takes 2 parameters, send or receive. In this case, it's send. And then that's the message. Read my words on Eskimo is this example message, okay? We launch it. It asks for the prompt comes up, it asks for a password, you enter it, and it starts working. Okay, here you can see the logs, how it is painting. These are logs in conditions, where the user's activity is registered as I like it. Let's see. As you can see, he's doing all the retweets and he's finished. It's quite fast. We can see it there. Okay, that would be it. With this, the person sending the message on his account, on his bot, which had no activity. Now we can see that it does have activity. We refresh the browser, and if we scroll down a little bit, we can see that already has retweeted messages, right? They are already retweeted there. As we have not put any hashtag, as you can see, and I told you before, they are quite varied, right? Even from different languages and so on. Okay, there we would have it. Now, the person who wants to decipher this, knowing who is sending the message, what they have to do is launch the tool in reverse, in read mode, so to speak, in receive mode. Nothing, we clean up the logs a little bit, and here you can see that Python is invoked with the same script, with the -m option, the -m flag, with the network option instead of send, and you indicate with the flag A, the user account of the person sending the message. And then with R, you can tell it the number of messages that you want to read from the user account. For example, 12. You can put in there 300, 5,000, whatever you want. Okay, you launch it. And in this case, as you can see, the message is not seen well and clear. Why? Because we have not set the password correctly. That is to say, if I don't know the password, I put anything, ABCD, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I get this residual value. Now we are going to launch it again a second time, but in this case, we are going to put the password correctly because we do know it. And as you can see, well, the message comes out in clear. This has worked. There you can see. Who could use this? Well, let's see. It can be used by the bad guys. It can be used by terrorists, spies, military intelligence, but it can also be used, well, activists, hacktivists, dissidents, journalists, people who are wanted by their country or by their government because of the conditions that their country has in particular. And also, of course, any of us, right? Cryptography enthusiasts, scenography enthusiasts, those of us who like computation in this sense, anyone can use it, right? In this sense, if you're thinking, well, but I can sort the list, I can make a huge data set, and I can go through and see what I can get out of here, right? See if I can break that password or if I can crack it. If we do permutations on lists of 8,900 character strings, you can imagine, right? The number of what can come out of files. It's many, many, many files of these. As a matter of fact, come on, it's such a huge number of files. So huge that if the factorial of 14 is that, imagine the factorial of 8,900, okay? It is totally unbearable. In fact, the number of files we would have to have is that number. It's not even that number right there. That's a little piece of it, okay? It's a 31,287 digit number. If each of the files is about 71,000 bytes in size, you can imagine the hard drive it takes to store that, okay? It can't be done. On the other hand, the step analysis or the conclusion that I come to after having seen this is that we have to be careful, okay? Because we might raise suspicions by using a tool like this, because they see that we are tweeting or retweeting something strange, something that we would never retweet ourselves, okay? I mean, if I have an account where I'm talking all day long about cooking, it doesn't make sense that all of a sudden there's retweets of cars or Ferraris, right? Either I'm making it up or airplanes. Then you might raise some kind of suspicion beyond them deciphering or trying to figure out the message you're hiding. Just raising suspicion is bad enough, okay? On the other hand, you could detect a change of behavior in an account using such a tool, well, in a fairly simple way. Come on, using a data set and a machine learning algorithm, it's easy to know a change of behavior in an account. So what I usually say here is that it should not be used with a personal account, right? The good and the bad thing is that brute force attacks are not going to be possible, because as soon as you make I don't remember how many attempts, but very few attempts, and you start downloading tweets with the API, it is Twitter itself that blocks you and also blocks you incrementally. Each time it blocks you for longer and longer. It could block you for days. So they have a pretty important limitation that is not cool. If we want to do cool scraping and massive data extraction, but for the bad guys who want to break our password, it's good for us, right? On the other hand, it also doesn't allow you to search very, very old tweets, okay? And you can undo retweets whenever you want and leave no trace, okay? That's a little thing that, well, that's good too. Recommendation then, what I said before, okay? Do not use this tool from your personal account. Create a bot, use it and go unnoticed. Why? Because Twitter is full of bots doing random things and weird things, and then you go unnoticed. You can undo retweets also once the message is delivered, and you can have other activity with your bot account, right? In addition to doing things with this tool, well, every once in a while you can write something or Twitter something, well, it's not bad, right, with your bot. That's it, I'm done, okay? Never forget that, even if there are people who might try to know what you are doing, okay? Twitter always knows who you are and what you're using their API for and what you're doing on their network, okay? So Twitter is going to know. So be very, very careful, because in the end, they can see you. Maybe people, maybe not the general public, but Twitter might know what you're doing. And this is just some research that we've done on this tool. It's not the most secure thing in the world, but I find it quite curious because I've never seen a tool that could hide information in this way, and I thought it was interesting to share it with you. So I hope you liked it a lot, and, well, thank you very much for attending the talk. Thank you very much.
Questions? For a radio, a shell? The radio? David, even if it's David, yeah.
Hear
Get
the radio.
out. More than Amazon and AliExpress, he's got them all. Any questions? Javier, if you don't know him, he's too humble. I mean, the tool is fine. Above all, Javier has a very good thing, which is that he makes things that don't work. So, well, I'll leave it there. The tool is very good. I like it. If there is time later, I will
Hello.
Why did you say that Twitter knows everything you do? Well, because when you make use of a tool like this that uses the API, at the end, you leave a record of the activity you are doing, how you are doing it, and they know at all times. Let's see, maybe Twitter does not know that you are using a tool called this retweet, but it does know that you are making a series of retweets based on a pattern of behavior, well, with some hashtags. Every time you test a tool in your house doing tests, well, those tests always have a pattern that is always the same, and they are able to see it. Then, on the other hand, the API, when you make a call and it returns information, one thing is the information that you see that the API returns, and another thing is what you don't see. And not long ago, there was a data leak from the Twitter API where there was a lot more information related to personal and quite sensitive data. Therefore, it is easy to think that Twitter can detect from all the accounts it has, at least, to separate those that are human beings with normal behaviors and those that are bots. They know which accounts are bots. And of the ones that are bots, they would analyze, come on, without a doubt, what kind of behavior they have, and how much they write, and how, and from what, and for what.
Any more questions? Yes, are there any more?
I think that's where you said.
Well, first, congratulations on the talk. What I should ask is a little bit along the lines of what we are talking about. If you have added any functionality to the tool beyond the hashtags to make the account look a little bit less cantazo, to make it look like more of a normal user activity. For example, the different languages doesn't really fit with an account suddenly tweeting in Chinese, then Italian, then Spanish. So what I'm thinking is that in a more real use, in the end, those accounts that you use sooner or later, you could get banned. So if you have added something to avoid it.
Yes, let's see. It has a to-do, this tool. We started this tool, well, the original idea is from 2018, and I started to improve it and develop it together with Daniel Lerd and others, well, about those years. It is true that we have left it a little bit aside, but there we have in the to-do, for example, add more flags, such as, for example, language, also important geography. But one thing I did notice, very good question, if you put a hashtag, it's true that you might not get all the retweets in the same language, but they might be of the same subject matter. Then, well, you would go a little more unnoticed. But of course, you can extend the tool. It is free software. It has GPL. And any of you can collaborate if you feel like helping us to improve it with this kind of improvements. Yes, we had considered it with flags in which you can dedicate language and geographies.
One last one. I'll go ahead in the meantime. 3 questions.
Dude, how high do you count?
Why is the 8,900 dictionary, if you make a really big dictionary bigger, increase the capacity, would there be a risk that some word wouldn't be in a tweet? And the third one is, how easy is it to port it to Mastodon?
Well, let's see, 8,900 words I think is a pretty optimal number for this to be optimal number so that this doesn't get out of hand. Another thing is also that the words should be longer than 4 characters for a reason that I mentioned, which is that there are too many words of less than 4 letters, especially 3 letters, which was a little bit the analysis that we did. There are a lot of 3-letter words, and in the end what we did was to take a dictionary and take almost all the words from an English dictionary of words larger than such. So could we put in more words? Yes, you could put in more. The only thing is that if you want to increase the capacity, you would have to put in a high enough number of words so that the power of 2 next would be 2 to the 14th, and that's many, many more words.
The capacity is the dictionary and also the size, right? Yes. I mean, Mastodon should be bigger, right?
Sorry, I didn't tell you anything. As for more everything or anything else, this is perfectly applicable. What happens is that we haven't developed it to other social networks like Mastodon, like Instagram, and like and YouTube as well, in YouTube comments. It's interesting. In all those, well, YouTube is not a social network, it's a retuiteó, but come on, perfectly applicable to other social networks and sites on the internet where you can write comments, messages, give likes, and so on.
One last one, very fast. And if not, go choose radio or concha. Concha is supposed to be bad, but concha can be good too.
I'll take radium
Okay,
every
so
time.
1, 2,
You
1
know
radio,
that.
2 shell. Okay, so 1, whoever it is, has a radio, okay? Then we give it to him, and 2 gets a shell. All
Very
right,
good,
then.
thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Let's hear it. Done. I'm coming. Ken.